Good evening, everyone. It's Wednesday night. Wednesday night, I suppose, means a lot of different things to us, a lot of different people, wherever we are. We used to say out there in radio land, in TV land now. Now the multiverse, one universe, but multi-dimensions through the internet. I like the idea of Wednesday. Wednesday is quite an interesting day, wouldn't you think? It's the middle of the week. And the Germans have thought about that for a while, and so they call it Mittwoch. Yeah, if it's the middle of the week, why not say so? Yeah. But we still say in England, English-speaking Union, which is quite a far-flung group of people when you think about it. Are you aware that English is the language of air traffic, like pilots all over the world? I mean, I'm still learning English, and wherever you fly, in the middle of the air, if pilots want to talk to each other, they'll speak in some form of this multifarious tongue called English. They used to speak of the lingua franca, which meant the French language. It was kind of like the court language of Europe. And now we have English, and still the ancient tributaries like the Amazon that flow marvelously, great volume to the sea, 100 miles into the Atlantic Ocean. It's still pretty sweet water from this tremendous outpouring of the Amazon River. But of course, many of the days of our week go back to the Scandinavians. You could say the Norwegians. I grew up on Norse mythology. In the 4th grade, we studied it. And it was, under Mrs. Hurst, it was a grand year. The lightning is crashing, the thunder is crashing, the lightning is crashing, the boat sails over the sea. You know, we had all these poems that we wrote somehow. And Thor. It's really quite approachable, a very meaningful kind of personification. God of lightning and thunder, but Woden still has a great aura, great mystique of being sort of shrouded in antiquity. Woden was, you could say, the leader of the gods. So Wednesday is still Woden's Day for us. Mittwoch. By the middle of the week, you should probably know where you're going. I remember humorously that Bobby Kennedy met one of his aides when he was in the government at noon in Washington. And he said, "I thought you were to be in Chicago today." And he said, "I am. I'm leaving real soon." He said, "The day's half gone. It's half over. You had all the opportunities," what he meant, "and you're going to get half a pie." So there's something, to me, even the fact that it just sounds good in American English that we speak Wednesday. It's a kind of a fat and jolly Santa Claus kind of a day in the middle of the week. There's always other days of the week with their great significance. Each one has its own personality, doesn't it? Flavor. And I don't know, but what the flavor changes according to the mood, the language, the way it sounds. But Wednesday, I find to be kind of like a wonderful muffin, kind of like a sweet roll, right in the middle of the week. And to me, it means simply the reading of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. I guess I came first to Vedanta in 1955, and we used to read the Gospel in the living room of the greenhouse where the work was founded here in Southern California, where one of the three sisters who lived in South Pasadena when Swami Vivekananda was here in 1900, the sister Lolita lived in the greenhouse over there, and she'd come sometime after 1900 to live in her brother's vast home. The orange groves, I think, went to Western Avenue. We have that legend out Hollywood Boulevard. Right there, that greenhouse is where it all started. And sure enough, Swami Prabhupada, who founded the work here, had us reading from the gospel. He'd started at the age of 14 and read it over and over again ever since. So we run into these marvelous cycles of energy, spirals of energy of our life's connotations. Just so happens that New Year's Eve means to me a church. Because when I grew up in New York City, oh no, I didn't grow up. They pushed me. My folks were Southern before the Civil War, then Southern Illinois about the time Lincoln poked through from Kentucky and all that. And I was a first-generation immigrant boy to New York. And they said, oh, you're a New Yorker. Well, I really am, because it's a universal city, one of the cities like that in the world. Right now they're under some siege, some travail. And it's kind of like a symbol of the world or the universe at large. But I love these ancient stories and the roots and all that, and the Ohio River. Grandfather on my mother's side knew his great-grandfather. He came over from Kentucky with a razorback sow and 6 shoats. Those are junior high school pigs. And when they got to the Illinois shore, she raised her nose and sniffed around and got back in the Ohio River and swam back to Kentucky with all of her pigs, piglets. So when they pushed, she said, all right, yes, I am. I'm a New Yorker. I was born in New York, but I didn't grow up there. I never grew up. So we would sit in church on New Year's Eve in silence and wait for the great bell, great big bell, in the belfry to start tolling 12 times as the one year passed into another. Well, my friends, it looks very much as if there is something called the present. And this is for you all to evaluate yourselves. William James founded the American School of Psychology, Introspection School. You do it for yourselves. Yeah, I kind of feel there's a present. And William James thought maybe it lasted for 3 or 4 seconds for humans. But it's linked to the past. And it's projecting into the future. And you may or may not know that everything we see, we're looking at it in the past. Even our fingernail takes a tiny increment of time and light to reach your eyes and the retina, and then in the back of your head where the heterotainment center is. So as the new year passes from one day into another, 1 year into another, and last night it was Tuesday, and now it's Wednesday. So one moment passes into another. And it's all a kind of a linked, beautiful flow. And Wednesday night is a great night. It's comfy. Because we don't have to get all excited about Monday, and here we go. And we're not Saturday trying to get everything done. Or whatever it is. And I'm suggesting that tonight could be a fork in the road for us. Every moment in the present, which is internal. If everything we see is in the past, what is the present? It's our inwardness, our very beingness, what the Swami in Australia calls my amness. And Alfred North Whitehead, who's helped us to think about these things with a synthesis, a grand synthesis of Western philosophy, which has many points of similarity with Vedanta, he says, in effect, that religion is what a person does with his and her aloneness, that inner solitude of real being. I'm going to throw out a thought or two that have come to me quite recently. Could be easy. Maybe the better word would be to say it could be simple, the spiritual life, which for many of us is quite a struggle. To one degree or another, we think of ourselves as a little boat on a choppy sea, lots of times. And we're trying to get there. And we know the way to get there is to set our sail with the wind behind us. A lot of times it seems to be coming toward us. And so we struggle. And we try to practice. Because Brahmananda, our grandfather Swami here, the teacher of the founding Swami Prabhupada, Brahmananda said, practice, practice, practice. Struggle, struggle, struggle. And of course, when will that be? In the present moment. There's a wonderful poem, Salutation to the Dawn. I think I'll try to find it and bring it next time. Salutation to the Dawn. In it is embodied still all of the past, and the future is but a dream of anticipation, idealism, and the present moment is what we really have. In this sense, our field of action, our Kurukshetra, the field that the Bhagavad Gita is played out on, the battlefield of our own life as we try to focus our mind on God. It occurs to me tonight, just very simply, that it might be simple. And this is a way that it comes to me in my mind tonight, that it might be simple. I just offer it to you like a Hallmark card, as I like to say, for those that care to send the very best. Kind of like a handkerchief in your coat pocket. Supposing that there were someone in the field of stories of humanity, some people call it history, that you really admired, that inspired you, by virtue of thinking of him, or whom, by virtue of thinking of whom, your mind would be uplifted and inspired. And this is one suggestion to evaluate. And suppose there were several of them in the history of humanity. Two kinds. One, great superluminaries that come rarely, according to the stories and the tales that people tell in the various great rivers of faith. And the other that come regularly in the form of preachers and teachers and role models, as they call them, and fathers and mothers. We all say, oh, there's a teacher that I had in first grade. Supposing we focused on a superluminary and decide, well, you know, when I think of that person, my mind goes high and I feel high. Then point number 3, if there are such people. Point number 2, we might find one that we like especially. And point number 3, it might be just as simple, maybe not easy, as thinking of that person. As, let's say, at this point in one's path up the mountain, my path, a real person, a real human being. A friend, for example. Different kinds of associations we have with people. And I'll just mention that that's what the farmers that I know about in this country found when the Bible was translated into, yes, that funny old language called English, with this wonderful word Wednesday going back to Woden's day. They found such a person. And his name was Jesus. And Jesus was the friend of these farmers and their families, trying to literally hew an existence out of the wilderness. And what was that existence? Liberty. Daniel Boone had a pretty scant standard of living. He had, in many ways, fewer worldly goods, you could say, than a person trying to survive in the slums of one of our big cities in America. But Daniel Boone had one thing that gave him his dignity, and that was freedom. And yes, he needed a lot of solitude. He used to say, I think it was, they said, well, he didn't say that, but that when he saw smoke coming from a chimney in the woods there, from a new house that's being built like a California tract home, he found time to skedaddle. He had to go west. He went as far as the Rocky Mountains in his spiritual search. But look what it was that he lived by, that inner solitude we're speaking about. The words of Jefferson, who got quite a hint spiritually of what the whole journey of life is all about, were put to music, and we learned it in high school. A wonderful phrase. And this is what I say Daniel Boone lived by. The God that gave us life gave us liberty at the same time, the hand of force may destroy, the hand of force may destroy, but cannot disjoin them, cannot disjoin them, cannot disjoin them. Freedom and spontaneity have to be the soul of religion, the soul of spirituality. It's your own living room, it's your own home, it's your own private moment, it's the present. Alfred North White had another way of expressing it. Religion is what a man does with his solitude. What a woman does with the realm of freedom that no government and no church leader, yes, and no patriarchal structure or the demands of society or even the clamoring of her children can take away from her. And to me, that's what reading the Gospel of Ramakrishna is all about. Now, if, for example, this superluminary, I think that's an easy thing to evaluate in one's own mind, find out who he was. And they say in India there are quite a few of these superluminaries, Rama, and they always come in pairs, Rama and Sita and Krishna, Radha, and Buddha, and Jesus. And people like that. And in the modern day, there's some reason to believe, I say that as a curious Westerner, hearing about it for the first time, like a tinkling of a bell. And again, one's free to make one's own evaluation. A teacher, a superluminary named Sri Ramakrishna. So imagine, as I say, it might be a fork in the road, something fairly simple. And that is that you see him in your mind's eye as a human being. And you feel that he's present like a human being. And you feel love emanating from him. You have it for him, a friend, let's say. And what do you do when you have a friend like that? It may happen, be very fortunate if it did, that you just feel like saying his name over and over again. So his name's Scotty. Scotty, 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 Scotty. You walk down the road of path of life with him. And then it might even get to the point one day that you kind of felt that it would be wonderful, wonderful, to have this noble soul, this symbol of joy, of infinity, because he's illumined, totally illumined. It might be wonderful to have him hold your hand and guide you. And more your thoughts turn to this person. I say person because that's an embodiment that's fairly easy to visualize and hold in your mind. For some, and I might submit, like making an opening bid, I might submit, it might be simple for many. And then when one enters a room, having had this friend, private friend, nobody else needs to know who your friend is, with whom you enjoyed the scenery of the day. I walked around Victoria Falls in South Africa. That was because of Atma, who told me, oh, you're going to the Parliament in Cape Town, it's not that far. And there was a rainbow coming over the marvelous chasm. I walked around the falls. There's a whole new world. The trees are different. It's southern hemisphere, everything. I decided it'd be kind of fun to have a playmate to go along with me. So this is all just fiction. So in my mind, I decided, like Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer, that I'd walk around the falls. It's a couple miles walk around the rim, something like that, with Sri Ramakrishna. So like a couple of boys in my mind, playing a game. We'd look at the trees, we'd look at the falls. Yes, we can struggle to climb the mountain of God. And I guess Vedanta will say we must. Through reading, through hearing. We hear much more in the United States than we might even imagine. And I expect that's around the world. Lots of people don't read and write much anymore, you know. Still. But we've heard so much through professors and teachers and the interactions of our life with our friends and people we meet, that I'll tell you, if I have of course I'm getting old now. We mentioned about the sister living in that greenhouse there, living room. Swami Pramananda came in 1929 at her request from Portland, Oregon, to start the work. So I like to say the society was founded in 1929. And I know because I was founded in 1929. So if I'm going to the computer and I want to get from there to the telephone, remember a phone number? Hey, try it sometime when you're running around the sun that many times. It's not all that easy. But you know how I can nail it, do it every time? If I say it out loud. That's because the very cells around my ears have been, I don't know, fattened. They find that if you listen to classical music. By having heard so much wisdom over a lifetime, so many drops of rain, so much sunshine, and maybe so little of it has permeated, maybe. So much has run off like water off a duck's back, but I've heard it, and I've been immersed, submerged deeply, like a donut in coffee. Or like all those Baptist ancestors on my daddy's side, they dunk 'em donuts. And yes, hearing the name of our friend and feeling the fact that we would read the gospel over there on Wednesday nights with a wonderful English speaker. They all speak like the Royal Vic out there, the Shakespeare, and the strawberry cart pusher, and in the Cockney part of London, you know. They're all like they're out of the Shakespearean theater.
I have to say that it's not that difficult to try to walk along with a friend who's a superluminary. It will make it possible for you to always be thinking of God. And to try to focus one's attention more and more and more as life offers less and less and less, fewer blandishments, and more inner joy and peace and serenity, even in a time like this, where a great storm is blowing across our land, and everyone's land around the world, in something called a global pandemic. And I asked my brother this morning at the breakfast table, are you like the eye of the storm? Are you like the eye of the hurricane? Where it's all sunshine and brightness. If we can glom on to God, if we can feel the presence of God, if we can imagine and try it, it's so easy with a friend. Our minds can offer back the sunshine and the love of God country that people are seeking right now more than ever. And you know, we have our mission, we have our ministry. There was a great preacher, prophet, who spoke of the ministry of all believers. A lot of people call us up on the phone, or we get on the phone and talk to people these days. That's what we're looking for, all of us. The inner peace, the inner serenity, the inner joy of the eye of the hurricane. What it says in that great book, Living, Walking with God. You know, the spirituals are so incredibly great because they're the Bible set to music. And don't you just love that one that goes, woke up this morning with my mind stayed on Jesus. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on Jesus. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on Jesus. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. When I'm walking, talking with my mind stayed on Jesus. I'm walking and talking with my mind stayed on Jesus. I'm walking and talking with my mind stayed on Jesus. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Would you see if you can read this? I don't want any more shuffling back and forth, but we don't have a light. See if you can read it. Just open it anywhere you want to, even at random. And the earlier you are in the book, the more cheerful it's going to be. In the first half of the book. I mean, outwardly cheerful. The gospel, according to Sri Ramakrishna, the gospel means, of course, his life.
Oh my God.
As he was reading and talking to people and having a wonderful time.
Oh, I can't see it.
Okay, then give it to me.
Sorry.
Thank you. So, this is wonderful, this part. You know, Sri Ramakrishna was born with something special in his heart. time of his coming into this world, there was something special about it. And when he was a little boy one day, he was out in the field on a day when there were dark clouds in the sky. And it's well known that he saw white cranes, must be one of the big birds they saw them stick their feet out behind, flying across these dark clouds. And he got high. And maybe that was the first intimation that we had that he was capable of reaching higher states of elevation of being, which ultimately were evidenced more and more and more, continuously, almost just more and more, by the state of samadhi, which is the illumined state of union with God, which we say in the West. So on Monday, June 4th, as it so happens, in 1883, he's with the devotees at Dakshineshwar, a grand temple, series of little temples, on the banks of the Ganges, where he was the priest. About 9 o'clock in the morning, the devotees began to arrive at the temple garden. Sri Ramakrishna was sitting on the porch of his room facing the Ganges, and who transcribed as he remembered them, these talks, and he was writing these words, who had spent the previous night with the master, sat near him. Balaram and several other devotees were present. Rakal, that's our Swami Brahmananda, whom I call our spiritual grandfather of this place. He was the teacher of the founder of this Vedanta Society in Southern California. Rakal lay on the floor, resting his head on the master's lap. He thought of him as his baby, and so did Ramakrishna, thought of him as his spiritual son. Like him, he asked for somebody who had the same kind of attunement, the same kind of feeling. For the past few days, the master had been regarding Rakal as the baby Krishna. Seeing Trilokya passing on his way to the Kali temple, and Trilokya is the son of Mathura and grandson of Rani Raswani, Rani meaning queen, Maharani, who built this marvelous Dakshineshwar temple. Now, the grandfather, he had become proprietor of the temple in 1871. So he sees him passing on his way to the Kali temple, and seeing that, Sri Ramakrishna asked Rakal, get up. Trilokya bowed to the master. Master to Trilokya. Was there no yatra performance last night? And yatra is a special worship of the Divine Mother which had taken place that night at the Kali temple. On another occasion, in previous years, the proprietors of the temple had arranged the performance of the yatra, which is a special kind of ritual service. And Charles said, no, sir, we couldn't conveniently arrange it. Master, now you're the head priest. What is done is done. But please see that this doesn't happen again. The traditions of the temple should be properly observed. There's something about the continuous repetition and cycles of ceremonies, or returning our minds to God every chance we get, or chanting the name of the Lord. And Trilokya gave a suitable reply and went on his way. After a while, Ram Chatterjee, the priest of the Vishnu temple, came up to Sri Ramakrishna. Master, well, Ram, I told Trilokya that the yatra performance should not be omitted again. Was I right in saying that? Superluminary. Almost as if he's not home. Or if he's home, he's checking something very deep in that home that he refers to. This superluminary is asking the man, did I do the right thing? Well, what of it, sir? Of course you were right. The tradition should be observed. The master asked Balaram to stay for the midday meal. Before the meal, Sri Ramakrishna described to his devotees the days of his God intoxication. Rakal, M. Ramlal, and a few others were present. Master, that's Sri Ramakrishna. Now and then, Hazra came forward to teach me. He says to me, why do you think so much about the youngsters, meaning the disciples? One day, as I was going to Balaram's house in the carriage, I felt greatly troubled about it. His attendant. This is like Shakespeare, you understand? Kind of like the altar acts. The fools come on, the comedians, and they talk and they say. Now sometimes you get a wise fool who says something knowingly or inadvertently, but this is definitely an entertainment contrary to the infinite wisdom of Sri Ramakrishna. I felt greatly troubled about it. I said to the Divine Mother, oh no, I'm sorry, this is Sri Ramakrishna speaking. So he asked Sri Ramakrishna, why do you think so much about the youngsters? So now one day, as Sri Ramakrishna was going to Balaram's house in the carriage, I felt greatly troubled about what he had said to him. That's the point. I said to the Divine Mother, Hazra admonishes me for worrying about Narendra, that would be Swami Vivekananda, his leading disciple. And the other young boys, he asks me why I forget God and think about these youngsters. No sooner did this thought arise in my mind than the Divine Mother revealed to me in a flash that it is she herself, capital S, capital H, who has become man. But she manifests herself most clearly through a pure soul. At this vision, I went into samadhi, a level of superconsciousness. Afterwards, I felt angry with Hazra. I said to myself, that rascal made me miserable. Then I thought, but why should I blame the poor man? How is he, The wonderful thing about mysticism is it's all based on experience. Experience is the criterion of validity of science and spirituality. And the beautiful thing is, as our founding Swami used to say over and over, the wonderful thing about mysticism, about Vedanta is, they never say that so-and-so had the experience. That's that. They say, you can have it too. As a matter of fact, eventually, ultimately, they say, you must have it. You will have it. And you want to have it. You need to have it also for validation. Because in the surety of that inner experience is a validity that no one can take away from you. And no one can add to. Remember, the hand of force may destroy. It cannot destroy. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. How about that one? And I think that can easily be translated, that deep, deep understanding of the American people into such an life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, life, existence, with a capital E. Sat, consciousness, liberty of mind. This is the most sacred birthright. A person can call you a slave. Are you a slave? Depends on your life. Paul said, speaking of the people newly released into freedom by Jesus, in Christ, there is no Jew or Gentile. There is no difference between man and woman. And one is beyond the concept of slave and free. So that's That's what's going on. He's got a direct experience, and he's saying, and you can have it too. The paragraph, I know these youngsters to be Narayana himself, God. At my first meeting with Narendra, the future Swami Vivekananda, I found him completely indifferent to his body. When I touched his chest with my hand, he lost consciousness of the outer world. Regaining consciousness, Narendra said, "Oh, what have you done to me? I have my father and mother at home." See, he wasn't self-centered. The same thing happened at Jadu Malik's house. As the days passed, I longed more and more to see him. My heart yearned for him. One day, at this time, I said to Bholanath, that gentleman was a clerk at the Akshadeshwar temple garden, "Can you tell me why I should feel this way? There is a boy called Narendra of the Kshatriya, well, let's go with the Kavasha caste, warrior king class. Why should I feel so restless for him?" Bholanath said, "You will find the explanation in the Mahabharata, one of the great epics of India, and from which the Bhagavad Gita comes, part of it. On coming down to the plane of ordinary consciousness, a man established in samadhi enjoys himself in the company of sattvic, that's serene, calm energy level people. They're right up there ready to have samadhi. He feels peace of mind at the sight of such men. When I heard this, my mind was set at ease. Now and then, I would sit alone and weep for the sight of Narendra." Now, we might do this another time, but Narendra is quite something. We're talking about this superluminary. It might be that some of you are hearing about him for the first time. India, a lot of India, feels that we've got at least a new Buddha on our hands here. Right? Now they do. So Sri Ramakrishna was able, after years of austerity, to make it his very own, his state of absolute union with God. And here comes a young fellow named Narendra to be his lead disciple, who's become a lighthouse for the world, who also has some very deep propensities. And it was the firm conviction of our founding Swami that all of the 16 disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, we'll say 16, reached Nirvikalpa Samadhi, ultimate union with God. Anyway, they came along with the superluminary, and they were jolly, and 3 or 4 of them were ever free, and oh my goodness. So Narendra, more and more and more, begins to manifest shining qualities that one thinks of in connection with, say, the superluminary. One time, near the end days, Sri Ramakrishna called the young man who was to become Swami Vivekananda to him and gave him everything that he had, as he felt, to send him out into the world. And in fact, he said, I mean, the language, the entertainment, the play, the divine play, the Leela it exceeds Shakespeare. Shakespeare was onto something. Every one of his plays was spiritual, the comedies, the tragedies, I don't care. He said to Vivekananda, "Now I am a beggar." So the way I like to look at it, everybody has their own way of looking at it. That's the beauty of it. That's what it's supposed to be about. But remember, tonight we're thinking of it very simply. To perhaps just try to think of, for example, Sri Ramakrishna as a friend, as human, as real, as approachable. in whose presence you feel wonderfully good and you feel enjoyable. And the more and more and more through the struggles that you've had trying to think of him, you realize he's not a companion. And when you enter a room, you may feel high. And one of the facets will be part of your consciousness, including his name. The way I like to think of Vivekananda sometimes is he's like another galaxy. I'm not sure you're aware, but maybe you are. It could well be. In the southern hemisphere, you can see them with the telescopes. We have two little galaxies. I kind of like to say it's like walking the dog. Our galaxy has an unknown number of hundreds of billion, at least 200 billion stars. And these are smaller galaxies. The Magellanic Clouds, they're called. So one way to understand Vivekananda is incredible antinomy, this relationship between Sri Ramakrishna and his chief disciple, I find, is to think of Swamiji as a galaxy, not a galaxy. Also, we have been trained in this place to think of Sri Ramakrishna's companions like Holy Mother and Swamiji and Ramananda as arms and legs of the avatar. So this galaxy, who has the ability in his own right, as touched by Sri Ramakrishna, given the gift, to meditate without moving like stone for hours, to reach the highest. Fascinating thing. And oh yes, I like to think of this sometimes because you have your path. I have my place on my path up the mountain. And everybody's path, that particular point, is sacred. And nobody can take it away from you. Nobody should try. It's yours. It's your point in space and time. So they had this wonderful drama association. Ramananda was one of those smart Calcutta boys that were coming up at that time, dealing with the English occupation, also doing a lot to get the best out of their training in English. If they hadn't been taught English, we wouldn't be as certain here, you know what I mean? And Vivekananda was the epitome of the modern English training, but spiritually rooted young youth of India. And today he is that figure of the youth. So he would argue with Sri Ramakrishna from the point of view of modernity, and science, and this and that. And everybody got the idea somewhere, up in Northern California, you're a pretty brainy boy. But oh, in my simplicity, and I mean utter simplicity, far more just won't do it. It gives you a hint. I feel sorry for those that think of him as a one yoga man. Ramakrishna in the gospel, which was heavy on the relationship of the devotees to God as they climb up and on, he said, I don't want you to be a Johnny one note. A flute was just one note. And the idea there is if you've got a heart and a head and a hand and the propensity for meditation, which as far as we know no animal does, the otters play the squirrel. The squirrel the other day, you should have been there, young squirrel, just a jumping foot or two in there, whirling around like something right in the middle of the air, jumping the tail. We were having a great time. He knew I was like, having a wonderful time. So otters can do that. Some people think they see a dog smile, whatnot. But the propensity for meditation seems to be distinctly human. And the union with God seems to be distinctly human. So you've got a heart, a head, a hand, propensity of meditation. We say, why not strive for a holistic blend as you walk up the mountain of God? But it's your path. It's your speed. It's your relation. That's the main thing. So after a lifetime of having this wonderful banter, which Vivekananda others, he said about Sri Ramakrishna, he let me fight him all the way on every issue, every question, until I made it my own. We heard of one of our Swami's brother disciples in India, who was Maharaj, that's Swami Ramakrishna's attendant, who's known as the Lord of God. And I spoke to one of his disciples one time, a devotee in India, and he said, you know, when they get close to these swamis, particularly Ramakrishna's idol, very approachable, he said what only a child would say to his father, he wouldn't go to just walk up the guy down. He said, have you experienced it? Well, the way he worded it, however it was, he meant, yeah, you have survived. And the Swami turned to him and said, yes, he said. By Maharaj's grace, Swami Ramakrishna's grace, I've got it. So here, this perfect Jnani, Swamiji, is also, we discover, if you are care to look, a perfect bhakta, not on the path of God. A perfect meditator. He sat for hours without blinking in the state of samadhi. And a perfect karma yogi. And people will listen. Swamiji said at one point, after he had become known to the world as the one that brought the interfaith movement to America in Chicago in 1893 at the World's Fair, part of the world's religions. He brought interfaith to the world. He said, sisters, famously, and brothers, America.
Then went on to tell them how they too can see God, can be one with God. That's what he came for, whether he said it in so many words or not. He said, speaking of this magnificent relationship between Sri Ramakrishna and himself, he said, I am a jnani, a man following the path of the knowledge, which merely means light. That's what Brahmanas make it so simple, these people. Love is love. God is love. And light is light. God is light. And that's the experience of the knower of God. That's what seeing God means, ultimately. And then you can say, I saw it, Swami Prabhupada just the other day in print, God is truth, capital T. And my Myron added one the other day, God is laughter. Vivekananda said, I am a jnani. So a lot of people think that's it. I'm a jnani on the outside and a bhakta on the inside. And then he said in Sri Ramakrishna was a bhakta, total love of God, whom he envisioned for his chosen ideal as mother. And my friends, my associates, my accomplices, my affinity people, and a jnani on the inside. Now, if that isn't a game, who's playing, who's got the mask and wearing it to the dance? The point is, I guess, that these men are 100%. So you approach them from any angle and you get something. You get what you're supposed to get. And that's what the simplicity of this seems to be all about. He's a real person. You can think of him as just a simple, regular, real human, a friend, the way the farmers did about Jesus. Sri Ramakrishna is a person. I can love him. I can call on him. I can see him come through the door. I can think of him as, yeah, he's right there. I can chant his name. I can walk with him around the Victoria Falls in South Africa, so I'll have a pal in a land where all the trees look strange and funny to me. And you know what? It seems to work. So, though they have been perhaps warp and woof of our struggles for a long time, Some of us have gone around the sun a few more times than some of the rest of us, at least we think we're in this time of this lifetime. Hey, the attempt to scale the mountain, to plumb the depths of the ocean, to work hard at bringing the restless mind under control for an hour at a time in meditation, just bringing it back and focusing it, all that hard work and the ups and downs and the whitecaps as the wind's blowing in your face in the daytime, maybe out of exhaustion, I don't know what, can become very simple. So they say, embodiment in a personal representative of the one shining infinity. I know these youngsters to be Narayana himself, God with a capital H. At my first meeting with Narendra, I found him completely indifferent to his body. I told you about that. The same thing that happened to him, that is to say, some kind of spiritual elevation, happened at Jadu Malik's house. Well, the story of their association is that more and more it's as if Vivekananda was being swept into the whirlpool, yes, of the blissful knowledge of God as existence, knowledge, bliss, infinite. And I like to hear the poetic translation of those words that Swami Prabhupada offered us: being, wisdom, and love, or joy. I just want to talk about the affinity, because if you remember, Ramakrishna was just saying, now and then I would sit alone and weep for the sight of Narendra. Don't you see? It's one galaxy talking to another. That's why these disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, 16 men standing around him in a circle with a different angle of perception, every one of them seeing the same infinity and having something different to take home. He said, oh, what a state of mind I passed through. When I first had that experience, I could not perceive the coming and going of day or night. It's Ramakrishna speaking. People said I was insane. What else could they say? They made me marry. I was then in a state of God intoxication. At first, I felt worried about my wife. That's Sri Sarda Devi, another superluminary. I'm sorry, but this thing is just so varied. It's just so full. This is a smorgasbord that never ends. It's kind of like one of the, the Latino, the cafes on wheels with all over town. 24/7, you can get something to nourish your soul. Well, how about the fact that in India's wisdom, these ancient cycles, that, my goodness, I think that Kapila, the actual real poet, lived maybe 1500 BC. The Greeks were running around just hiding behind the trees practically. Socrates wasn't even thought of. 1,000 years before Socrates, okay? There were the days of the Mycenaean Greece, the Greeks that went to Troy and all that. But way back yonder, these people had discovered meditation, they discovered the infinity, and they were living in it. But the luminaries that come in the feminine form with each of these superluminaries is just de rigueur. The Indians want to see God in everything, so they see God in Dad, Mother, and the baby. We see God in Dad and the baby about Christmas time. So the Christian missionaries, I love this. I love the Christians. I am a Christian. I know I can't say that. I love to say what they say in the spirituals again. Why can't we learn from our experienced sisters and brothers of America, many of whom are African American. Many, 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 not Latino. I'm talking about spiritual gold mines. Ye made me a watchman upon the city wall, and if I am a Christian, I am the least of all. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. When I was a seeker, I sought both night and day. Alas, I asked the Lord to help me, and he showed me the way. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain.
Jesus Christ is born. So when the Christian missionaries go to India, they say, hey, Jesus. They say, oh yeah, tell us about it. What he told them about him. What he told them about him. Said to him, oh good. Have you got any more? And then the Indian folks are looking around, looking around to see the Shakti side. God immanent is the feminine concept, because joy within one's heart, infinity within one's heart, as John Dodson pointed out, is just totally happy, loving. Infinity outside becomes awesome. And that's where the church fathers go in. The Pauline Christians, God the Father, and the greatest philosopher possibly that's ever lived in the history of the world, Shankara, maybe about 800 AD, current era, came up with a great phrase of Vedanta of India, which has to be experiential. That's the point that our philosophy departments have not caught. And out of his own experience, he said, Atman, the infinity within China, and Brahman are one. So here we go. We got this fellow here that's, oh yes. So the Indian folks are looking around for the God immanent side that's supposed to be around Jesus somewhere. Now this, one way of looking at it, I'm not sure. We don't have dogma in Vedanta, believe it or not. This is not quite orthodox, obviously, in some of the Christian paths, fine. But as they're looking around the room, they say, oh, there she is, Mother Mary. Not that Mary is an incarnation in the Christian world, not this and that and the other, the Mother of God and all that, but here is the specially infused spirit that seems always to have to come with the superluminaries together. So my dears, whereas they said, the Welsh people say to everybody, he said, at first I felt worried about my wife, then I thought she too would eat and drink and live like me. So I would say to the Divine Mother, that's God as Mother, Mother, I shall take my spiritual experiences to be real if the landlords of this country show me respect. They too come of their own accord and talk with me. When he began to find out that Shisarda Devi was nothing less than the Divine Mother of the universe in his heart and his mind, he realized that this was to be a very special emanation for the benefit and the love of the world. Now, that magnificence can, in a certain mood, be simplified into a real person whom you can imagine, Sri Ramakrishna, your friend, And all you have to do, it seems, at that mood and moment, is to ask to be his friend. And playmate, like a little kid. And go with him when he goes fishing. And ask him to be there for you at every moment of your life. Well, my dears, I see that that is why we continue the tradition that they spoke of tonight and read from the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna.